Hello there. On this video I will show how I built these Foureyes Sevotto dresser cabinets. These are currently at my house, so I built them for myself obviously. But for the ones who don't know, I am not a full-time woodworker. This is just a hobby for me. One day I actually hope that it will be a profession that I can actually make my living, but not yet. I'm still a beginner. But that's the thing I really like about these Foureyes plans, because even they say on some of their videos that it's like a woodworking course, but at the end of it you actually get a nice piece of furniture, or in my case two. But I mean, if you are like me, someone who doesn't really have the skills to design or even build very complex stuff without help, I really recommend their plans. And this is not a paid ad or paid commercial. I pay for the plans with my own money. This is just me sincerely telling that they are the best out there. I mean, because with the plans you get the PDF versions, you get the templates, but you also get like massive amount of video courses and information how to actually do the build. So if you only look at the price, yes, they are more expensive than some other plans where you only get the PDF version, but I mean, trust me, they are super good. And they also contain the metric values for everything, which makes my life a bit easier. So very happy with the end result, very happy with the plans. If you want to see the build video, watch along. For the ones who decided to stay and watch the video, thank you. On this video you will see me being an idiot, and the proof you can see in the next clip. So I'm an idiot. It's more on that a bit later on. You know, in these videos very often people, other bigger channels and myself as well, we like to show these short clips where we start the machine. It wouldn't really work with my new planer because it takes a while to start, as you can see. I have to say, I love that machine, but it's actually funny how it starts. Like, it has this two-phased start, so it takes a long time to get it running. But anyway, as every build, obviously this one starts with milling the lumber as well. And I'm building these dressers or cabinets using walnut. And obviously if you think about the shape of a cabinet, what you need to do is a lot of panels, because there's the top panel, there's the bottom panel, there's the side panels, and then there's the back panel, and then there's the drawer fronts, which basically are a panel. So a lot of the things you see me building first are panels. I will be building a bit more later on, but very standard milling procedure like with any other project. Now, I was too lazy to find out my proper pen, so I was using this super small piece to do the in and out method. If you don't know what it is, when doing panels, marking every other board as in, every other board as out, or every other edge, then jointing them according to the markings, so which side is facing out, which way is siding in, makes the panels pretty much perfect. Because if your jointer is not at perfect 90 degree angle, the in and out method actually evens them out. So it's just a technique that's very useful, and I use it every single time, and my panels are pretty much perfect every time. So very good and very simple technique to master. And if you want to find out more, just search for in and out method jointer in YouTube. You will find tons of videos explaining it properly. Some of my boards had not big one, but still a small bow to them, so I decided to add dominoes just to make the glue up easier and get them aligned properly. And as always, you don't need to use dominoes, you can actually do it without anything, but you can use dowels, biscuits, or you can use clamping coils. I mean, there's many ways, but the only point is just to make sure that the end result will be as flat as possible, so less sanding, and then you can keep the thickness you actually want. So when making 2 cabinets, obviously there's a lot of panels I need. Here's one. Then if I walk across my workshop, there's a second one. So basically these are the top and bottom panels. As I'm making 2 cabinets, I need to make 2 more. So that's 1 more top and 1 more bottom. And then there's 4 side panels that I need to make. So looking at the plan as well, that's something that's just mandatory. So the start of this project will take a while. I don't have enough clamps or room to have all the glue ups done at the same go, so I can basically do these longer ones only 2 at a time. Then these smaller ones, maybe if I use every single clamp I have, I can do all 4. We'll see. But 2 done, 6 to go. I'm not much of a hand tool guy. I normally just use my orbital sander to get rid of the glue spots. Here I decided to try something I had never tried before, using a card scraper to get rid of the glue spots. And it actually worked very well. So, I mean, that's something I need to learn to use more, the hand tools. I've never used a plane, for example, because I just have no idea how to use it. Some of you might have noticed that I do have these kind of supports on my wrists. I don't know the problem, doctors are still looking into them. Have been for many months, but they get very painful sometimes. That's one of the reasons as well why I do prefer to use power tools in many things, but still, I mean, they function. I can live with the pain. So using hand tools, getting to learn how to use planes and that stuff is on my to-do list. Eventually I will go there. Now after all the panels were done and sanded, it was time to work on the templates for the legs. And as part of the plans, Foureyes, they explain very well, give you kind of instructions how you can create these templates that you need. And they are great because as I'm building 2 cabinets, obviously I need to build 2 sets of legs, so basically 4 pieces of these legs. But some of you might have noticed the mistake and why I'm an idiot. And if not, here you see. So I'm an idiot. It's sometimes when working with the plans, they are great plans, but you kind of end up working in an autopilot mode. And so when I did this template, I know it's only half of the template, so I should draw like the other half and then flip it over and do the other half and then cut it in one piece, because obviously it will be only one piece. But now that I'm working in autopilot and I have this half template, what I did was that I obviously cut my legs in 2 pieces as well. I mean, I can still make it work. I don't need to redo them. I just I'll need to rejoin these, and then you will see later on the video when I do the final leg assembly, I will actually make kind of a stretcher piece that will get them back together, and it will be fine, but it's just a stupid mistake. Those happens, it's not the end of the world, but I mean, it's every single project there's always something, and I guess this one's here, but this is now only half of the legs, so I will still need to make 2 more, and those I will actually make like they should be. Just a bit of a problem. I actually only have one walnut piece left, which is thick enough. And there's this nasty knot in like the worst spot. I mean, it doesn't go through, so it's fine. I can fill it up with epoxy, but it's still kind of annoying because no matter how I position these, it will be left on some legs, I think, but we'll see. I'll figure it out. On the next pair of legs, I am doing things in a way how the guys actually explain it in the instructions. So this time, yeah, I didn't make any stupid mistakes anymore. So this is how it should be done. Flip it over and mark your cut lines. And then, as before, cut everything with bandsaw. And then use the template with a router. And depending what kind of routers you have, especially what kind of router bits you have, it depends how the next phase will be done. But for me, I decided to use my small Makita handheld router with very small templating bit first to kind of create this shallow section following the template. And once I was done with that, then I went over to my router table to get rid of rest of the material. I've tried sometimes to take all the material off at the router table without this handheld router and this templating bit. And it kind of works, but I have had some problems sometimes as well with stability and everything. So for me, this way works. For someone else, it might be slightly different workflow, but the whole point obviously is to copy the form from the template to the leg pieces, and on that one everything went very well. And the way I'm doing it here is I'm now using the table saw to get a straight glue line, because I'm building these legs basically in 2 pieces. Well, for the ones where I made the mistake, in 3 pieces, but anyway, kind of the other part of the legs will be glued on, mainly because the grain direction is changed for these pieces, because it will be much stronger when the grain is kind of upwards here. If I would be using the grain in other direction, there is the risk that they would be snapping off very easily when moving those cabinets over. So these small things, yeah, you need to consider while building it, but again, the plans are actually covering these ideas and sections very well. So building these legs actually was quite simple. I mean, they look fancy, they have these nice curves and they are angled, and it might look very tricky to make. But remembering, I still consider myself a beginner, and I was able to make them. Anybody will be able to make them, just takes a bit of practice with the router, but nothing too complicated. But now with those done, the only thing needed for finishing the legs are the stretcher pieces, and I just used whatever I had, didn't really mill them to any specific dimensions. I just cut them to the length I needed and glued them in, so because no one will ever see the stretcher pieces apart from people watching this video, but I mean on the actual final piece the stretchers will not be visible, so it doesn't really matter how they are done as long as they are strong and will hold the structure together. After a bit of sanding, it was time to leave the legs be for quite a while and start working with the cabinets. And the way the joints are done in this specific one are by using these rabbit, whatever they're called, these kind of notches at the edges, which will make the glue up very strong and actually help keep the cabinet square. And it's also a visual thing. It actually looks nice when you look at the cabinet from front, where you see this rabbit kind of at the corners. But yeah, I'm here setting up the dado stack, finding out the proper place where to put it, where to do it, and then it was time to start making the cuts. And here you can see I didn't have the exact width on my dado stack that I needed, but that was easy to do with just 2 passes, so in the end it worked out very well. Now I don't plan my videos that much, obviously I always have some idea, but it's funny that it's 15 minutes into the video and only now starts to be the phase when I actually start to assemble the first carcass of the first cabinet. So obviously there's a lot of work that has been gone into this, building the legs, doing the glue ups, cutting everything, doing the dado cuts and everything you have seen up to this point. And looking at the folder, when I started assembling the cabinets on this clip, I had gone through 93 video clips from my folder. So I mean there's a lot of footage and a lot of work to be done to get even to this phase. So even though following the plans it wasn't that difficult to build these cabinets, but there's a lot of work. Calendar wise it took me 3 weeks actually to get them done, but that's the way it goes.
Alrighty, time to veneer. After many failed attempts, I have some ideas what went wrong. First I tried to do too big of an area at the same time. Couldn't get the pressure needed for it. Then I also think that I used too much glue, so with this one I will now try with very limited amount of glue, and then I will use these pieces of plywood to get even pressure and hopefully a good end result. So they will be the dividers that will be put inside the cabinet. So let's see, I think this is my attempt number 4 or 5. So I'm not expecting it to be a successful one, but we'll see.
Why did I decide to do veneering all of a sudden? I'll explain soon, but first I'm just showing some of the failed attempts on doing this veneering because I've never done this before. So it's a bit of a learning curve as with everything. So what I'm doing here are the vertical dividers that go inside the cabinet. Why am I using plywood and veneering it? The reason is very simple. I ran out of walnut and for me it's about a 3-hour trip to my hardwood dealer. I really didn't want to do it, and walnut is expensive, and then again I had some extra pieces of plywood lying around, and I actually had bought the veneer before just in case I ever need it, and now the situation came. I needed it, so I started learning how to use it while waiting for the first strip to dry up, because I needed to do the veneering on small sections. That's what I learned from my mistakes. Cannot do too big area at one go with the equipment I have. So anyway, while waiting for it to dry, I started cutting the dado or the groove that I will be using to attach those vertical dividers once they are done. And for that one I was using my router. It was actually fairly easy thing to do because I was using this spacer block that ensured that all the 4 cuts I needed to make were exactly on the same spot, because I needed to make them on the top and bottom, and as I was building 2 cabinets, overall I needed to do it 4 times and land the groove on exactly the same spot on each. So using this spacer block just made it a lot easier, because every single time if I try to measure things, it's not super exact. It might be close, but it's never exact. So whenever possible I always try to use spacers or stop blocks or anything that will get me rid of measuring stuff, because there's always a bit of an error, as I mentioned. So once the veneering was done, it was time to use my table saw to first cut the dividers into final length, and then it was time to cut the lip that actually goes to the groove. which I cut with my router on the previous step. And on these cuts I needed to be super precise, because if there's any gap it will be visible in the end product. So that's why I decided to do everything slightly too big in the first go, and then just to take fraction of an inch or a millimeter, whatever, and try it again, and then again take a very small piece out and kind of find the proper fitting that it fits to the cabinet and groove. Because again, if I would have tried to measure it and just cut it and trust my measurements, it could have ended up being like 1 millimeter too small, and then it's very, very hard to try to fix that problem. And obviously I didn't want any exposed plywood to be visible in the cabinet, so that's why I added this edge banding on it. So when I did the first glue up for the Carcass, you can see that there's these super small tiny gaps left on the joint. It sometimes happens, maybe I didn't have enough clamps or whatever, I mean it's quite common. But as they are so super small, it's actually easy to fix, so I just added a bit of wood glue and then sanded over, and they are completely gone. You will never know that they were there. Obviously, if they would be bigger gaps, then you will see the glue line, because the moment you put finish on, those spots will be visible. But these ones here, they were so small that you would have no idea that they ever existed. Now, during this video I mentioned that I needed to make a lot of panels. Now became the moment when I needed to do 2 more panels, because I did these bigger panels that I will then use to cut the drawer fronts. The main reason is that I wanted the front of the cabinet to look like it's been built from one bigger solid block of a panel, as it is in the way I built it. So actually in the Foureyes plan and the way they designed it, the door is built slightly differently than the way I did it. So again, if you want to see the original, go see their video. And if you decide to build this yourself, of course, do what you want. But actually, personally, I like my way better. So opinions, we all have one. And in this case, I prefer this way I did it. So here I am gluing up the vertical dividers. And that basically finishes the Carcass. So now it's structurally pretty much done. Of course, when I add the back panel, it will add more support to it, but at this stage, it's already quite strong. Now, talking about the drawer fronts, obviously, in order for me to attach them to something, I need to create drawers. And there's a big difference how I decided to do mine compared to how Foureyes had it in their plans. The biggest difference comes that they are using expensive Blum underdrawer slides, which I would have loved to use as well. But we don't really have access to them in Finland, and when I was looking them from Amazon, it was like I need to wait for 4 to 6 weeks to get them. So I didn't. So I built very simple boxes very quickly, just attaching them with glue. And then I used much cheaper drawer slides, which function okay. But then again, if you are going to build this yourself, I would probably recommend doing it the Foureyes style instead of the way I did it. The only benefit in my style is that it's a bit cheaper, and building the drawer boxes this way is much easier. But the end result would be better if you follow it the way that Foureyes did it. Finishing the drawers in a simple way, just attaching the bottom piece with some glue and brad nails, and then it's done. And then it was time to start sanding the carcasses before moving ahead with the project. And for this one I decided not to use a router to add any chamfer or other fancy things. I just broke the edges with my hand sander or sanding block. And I think it was the right decision here because just the end result works very well. And then I'm doing the water popping before the final sanding. And for the ones who don't know what water popping is, here's an explanation.
Okay, now before doing the final sanding, just wanted to briefly explain why I sprayed water on it, how it works, and I'll see if I can actually capture it on the camera. But now I can actually feel the grain or whatever, that's kind of spikes even. I mean, it's really, especially with walnut, I think it's very easy to then feel it on your hand, how the grain is lifted up. So now when I do the final sanding, then it will be nice and smooth when I apply the finish. But that's really the thing, so doing the water popping, then final sanding, and then the end result will be very smooth and nice to touch even after applying the finish and using it. So that's the thing. And let me see if I can, I'll take a picture if not, but I saw that there was one spot where it was actually quite visible. Yeah, here it is, so not sure, can you spot it on the camera? Yeah, here you can see it. So this area here, you can obviously feel it as well, but I mean, this is what happens with the water popping. So you can really see what's happening. So now when I do the final sanding, all of those will be gone. And then I will apply the finish.
The grit I'm using for the final sanding is 180. That's usually where I go with my furniture. Sometimes I go to 240, but usually 180 is the place where I stop. And after that, it's time to start applying the finish. And I pretty much always default to using hard wax oils. In most cases, I'm using Rubio. On this one, I decided to use something cheap, something German from Amazon, German site. It was cheap, it kind of worked out, but it wasn't actually nice to use. I think it had too much wax in it, and when I started rubbing it off, it got all gooey and just it's not nearly as good as Rubio is. So Rubio, yes, it is more expensive, but now after I've been using a couple of cans of this cheap stuff, I'm going back to Rubio. So I kind of understand why it's more expensive than some others. Yeah, then here what I'm doing, I'm just putting the Carcass on these painter triangle thingies so that I can put finish on the back as well. And then it was time to start attaching the drawer slides, and I'm using a spacer block here again for the same reasons. I don't trust my measurements. I think this is the only way to get this style of slides to work. Possibly same with undermount as well, but using spacer blocks whenever possible is kind of my decision, my style. And the end result was pretty fine actually.
So the next thing, I need to create the drawer fronts. And on the Foureyes course, in the video section, they had a very detailed section where they went through how they did the math and calculated the gaps between the drawer fronts. Everything was in American units, talking about 1/8 of this and 16/32 of that. I have absolutely no clue what they meant. Kind of understood the idea, but on this one I will not follow the way they did it. I'll do it my way, which is basically I know that there will be 4 gaps, and I will actually use these sticks, that this will be the gap that I want to do. So what I will do, I will measure the internal measure for the height and width, and then I'll just basically subtract the 4 gaps using these sticks and then divide it by 3, and that should give me the length where I need to cut the drawer fronts. And then this way I will do the same, but obviously then there will be only 2 gaps, one here, so then I will use 2. Will it work? I have no idea. So hopefully the next clips that you will see me doing is doing the cuts and then doing dry fitting here, and everything will be okay-ish. If not, the next clips will be me doing the cutting and then burning these cabinets because it didn't work out. So we'll see.
The reason why I'm smiling and talking to myself is I actually had a friend over at my workshop. He's building some stuff for himself, and basically he's just bashing me that this will never work, and I'm bad with math and all that, so he's right. But in this case, actually my logic worked, so I didn't need to burn my cabinets. So what I've done here is that I used the logic I explained. I cut the drawer fronts to 3 pieces using the method I explained, and now I'm doing the dry fitting here. And this was a bit nerve-wracking for me because I actually didn't know how big the gap would be in the last one. But putting this here, it actually worked out quite well. So, but of course, this happened. No big deal, nothing broke. Still a few things I need to do before I can actually attach the drawer faces. What I'm doing here is taking a very precise measurement for the handles that I will be attaching to the drawer fronts. And here I made a mess with my camera actually, so I'm zoomed into completely wrong place. But you get the idea. I was using my table saw to widen this notch 1 cut at a time and then moving the drawer front just a bit to the side and doing it again and again and again and again. Because I actually needed to do the same process for 8 panels. It would have been probably smarter to set this up on a router or attach my dado stack, but this is the way I did it. It worked out. And then I built the handles, which was a very simple process. So basically I just milled wood to the specific dimensions I needed, and then I used this round bit on my router to make the handle that's where your fingers grab when you open the drawers. So very simple thing to do, but I actually like how they look in the end product. So there's just something about hand-built handles compared to the metallic ones that you buy. So I really like these. So now we are getting close in actually being finished with everything. Obviously there has been a lot of sanding, adding finish to the cabinet legs and all that stuff. But what I'm doing here is attaching these figure 8 fasteners that I'm using to actually attach the legs to the carcass. It's a simple way, and it will also allow for some seasonal wood movement. So I think for this application, this was probably the easiest and maybe even the best option to use. So then basically only one thing left, which was to add finish to my drawer fronts. And then it was just a matter of getting them attached to the drawers. And the way I decided to do it is use the spacers I was using before to do the kind of calculations. And then I clamped the drawer front to the drawer, and then I just used 6 screws to get it permanently attached. So this was actually a fairly simple way to do it. There might be more sophisticated ways, but it worked. With the door it was slightly different. I needed to kind of wedge it in place first, then attach the hinges, and then with few screws on I was able to open the door and then put the rest of the screws in. And then I'm 99% ready. The only thing left is to attach the legs to the cabinets. And then I'm done. With that, I hope you enjoyed the video and see you on the next one.